Welcome to the Lifelong Flyer, the official podcast of special programs and continuing education at the University of Dayton, where curiosity takes flight at every stage of life. This podcast is dedicated to exploring how learning continues far beyond traditional classrooms and degree programs. And each season, we'll spotlight special topics that inspire growth, reflection, and engagement, while also highlighting the rich continuing education opportunities, seminars, and community experiences available through the University of Dayton. Our inaugural series is titled The Modern Elder, a 4-part exploration of what it means to age with purpose, vitality, and intention in today's world. This series invites us to reframe aging not as decline, but as a powerful life chapter filled with wisdom, reinvention, and possibility. We'll examine how individuals can thrive in later life through lifelong learning, meaningful connections, health, financial preparedness, and contribution to community. To guide us through this important conversation, we're honored to welcome our special series host, Donna Kastner. Donna is the Managing Director of Age Well Dayton, a dynamic organization that connects older adults with the tools, insights, and resources they need to design their best chapter yet. Her work is rooted in helping individuals navigate aging with confidence and clarity while strengthening age-friendly communities across the Miami Valley. Previously, as a Del Mar Encore Fellow with the Dayton Foundation, Donna played a pivotal role in launching and expanding the Miami Valley Age-Friendly Network, a collaborative initiative dedicated to creating inclusive, supportive environments for all generations. Donna brings both professional expertise and heartfelt passion to these conversations, making her the perfect guide for this special series. In today's episode, Reframing Aging, Donna will be joined by respected journalist and thought leader Richard Eisenberg to explore key questions facing older adults today, from financial security and healthcare to housing, caregiving, and the growing unretirement movement. So whether you're planning your next chapter, supporting someone who is, or simply curious about the evolving meaning of aging in modern society, we invite you to lean in, listen closely, and reimagine what's possible. And now, please join me in welcoming our special host for this series, Donna Kastner.
Thanks, Katie. What a delight it is to host this Lifelong Flyer podcast in the series on modern elders. And I would be remiss if I didn't give a hat tip to Chip Conley, author of the best-selling book, Wisdom at Work, The Making of a Modern Elder. What a great way to describe this population. You know, today I am a member of this population and we're pioneering new ground. We're a population that has, and we're going to continue to grow faster than nearly every other. A little context, consider this. As of 2024, there were about 61 million Americans aged 65 and older, essentially 18% of the total population. In 1980, looking back, 25 million, 11%. So we had quite a surge. And looking ahead, by 2050, experts predict that this segment will reach about 82 million, easily 23% of the total U.S. population. And by 2034, you've probably heard this, we're going to have more people 65 and older than 18 and younger. So yes, retirement strategies that worked for our parents and grandparents just might not cut it for us, which is why I'm thrilled to have today's guest, who is one of my top experts to follow, Richard Eisenberg. Rich unretired from his job as managing editor of the PBS website for people over 50, Next Avenue, where he also served as editor for the site's Money and Policy and Work and Purpose channels. Since unretiring, Rich has been writing columns and articles for MarketWatch, Kiplinger's, Fortune, AARP, to name a few. He's also host of the Friends Talk Money podcast, where the focus is on strategies for the age 50 plus crowd. Rich, thanks so much for joining us.
Well, Donna, thank you so much for having me.
Okay, so there's a lot of territory I want to cover in a short period of time.
Okay.
So listeners, viewers, buckle up, because we're going to move through a number of categories. And I think I want to start with one of the most challenging ones first. Money matters. Are we going to have enough for this longer lifespan?
Some people will, and I'm sorry to say, I think some people won't. And a lot of it depends on how long we're going to live, which of course nobody knows. But I will say that people are living longer in general than they used to. And in fact, I just did an article about this for MarketWatch. there are more centenarians now, and there are going to be even more centenarians in the future. So, a lot of us have thought, well, I've just got to make my money last till I'm in my 80s. Well, that may be true for a lot of people, but some people are going to need to make their money last to their 90s or maybe into their hundreds. And I just saw a recent survey showing that about half of people feel like they're kind of excited about the idea of living to 100, but they are not doing very much to prepare for it.
And I feel like a lot of these changes happened, I'm part of the whole boomer big surge, but these instances are going to impact generations that are following us, perhaps even more. Do you find a greater awareness or preparedness among younger generations?
I think that, yes, I think that they're more aware because they're seeing it through their parents and their grandparents. But I do think people don't really start focusing on this until they get into their 50s and 60s, because then it becomes pretty real. And they're saying, okay, well, maybe I haven't done all the things I should have done, but I really still have to do some things now that are going to help me out. People in their 20s and 30s know that they're going to have to deal with this one day, but they are sort of putting it aside until they feel like they have to.
And I'm with you on that. Most of the younger generations I talk to are more mindful of it in watching us
Yes.
navigate through this. And it was like new territory, really. Think of when 401ks started happening and this shift. So that brings me to the next big bucket, unretirement. The first time I heard that concept, it was from you. Tell
Uh,
us more.
Yeah, well, the first time I heard the word unretirement was from a friend and colleague of mine, a journalist named Chris Farrell. He wrote a book called Unretirement. And I thought, well, that's a really interesting idea. And by that, he meant, and I mean, the idea that you're working part-time in retirement, but you're working as much as you want to, when you want to, where you want to, and with the people that you want to, and not with the people that you don't want to, which is something most of us can't do when we have full-time careers. But each of us defines it a little bit differently. So for me, my unretirement, I'm working, I would say, for pay about a third of the time. That's more than some people and less than others.
And having that kind of goal. So I've only recently started to think about that, where I call it my encore pizza pie, and it's a third income generating, a third volunteer, and then a third is me, my family, the things I want to do. But you're right, there's an opportunity and freedom that comes with this, but it is truly uncharted territory. And when people talk to me, they're like, "Are you retired yet?" Like, "Well, have you met me? I'm not sure that's on my radar screen." Can you speak to the perceptions of those around us?
Well, I think a lot of people still aren't sure what the word retirement and retire mean these days. And so, traditionally we thought, well, it meant you've left your full-time job and you are starting the next chapter, which is leisure time. Uh, and that's true for some people, and that's great for some people. But for others, that's not the way they view their retirement. They view it as the idea of, well, not working as much and or working differently. And as you said, volunteering. But there's still a stigma with that. And so some people who are doing that, living that way, don't want to call themselves retired because they think people assume that means they're doing nothing. And in their mind, they're doing something. So some of them say unretired, but some of them just say, well, I'm still working, just not as much as before.
And this workforce dynamic, if I could, I think there's so much here. So first of all, there's a lot of attention on workforce growth and really with a concentration on younger mid-career professionals. And I think we're in the mix, yet it can get a little tricky trying to define maybe a swim lane that we might contribute in. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, well, I think it's something that each of us has to define for ourselves. But I will tell you that from the work that I've done, the articles I've written, I find that most people think about what they don't want to be doing anymore, what they want to get retired out of, what they want to retire from, but not so much what they want to retire to. And I wish more people would think a little bit about, okay, well, what will my life be like? What do I want it to be like when I leave my full-time job? How am I going to spend my time? You don't have to know exactly, and that'll change over time. But a lot of people don't think about it at all. And then suddenly they've got this blank calendar and they get really nervous and sometimes they get depressed and bored. And I'd like people to try to avoid those kinds of problems if I can.
Yeah, and I love how you put it, because I think that there's a reluctance, like, I don't know what I'm going to want to do. I'll tackle it when I get there. But I think having just a hint at where you're heading, I look at retirement as this big bang moment in your life when people are curious and celebrating you. And it's a chance actually to kind of let them know where you're heading, as far as the types of work you might explore.
Yeah. And I think people need to understand that you don't have to make a decision about what that's going to be and then plan to stick with it and that it can't change. It will change. Things will come up. You'll be doing things that you thought you would like to do that it turns out you don't like to do. There are things that you didn't expect to do that you start taking on. So expect that it's going to evolve. And that's a good thing. And what I love about this stage of life is it gives you a chance to experiment and try things. And I thought maybe I would do voiceover work in my unretirement. And so I took classes in and I got a microphone and all that. And then I decided, no, I don't want to do it because it turned out that really to do that, it meant really becoming an audio engineer. And I really admire people who can do that, but I'm not one of those people. So I gave that up and I didn't fault myself. I didn't feel like a failure. I just felt like, okay, well, I thought I might want to do it. And now I don't. So I moved on.
And sometimes the best answers we get, one is defining what is the swim lane for this encore stage, but what is not
Mhm.
that, so there's a chance for experimentation that we've never had before.
Exactly.
I'm reluctant to get into ageism too hard. I don't want to be the person that's showing up every time in an intergenerational conversation going, that was ageist. But
Uh-huh.
candidly, Rich, I'm encountering unintended ageist remarks constantly.
Mhm.
How about you?
Yeah, I think I would agree with you. I hear it from people who don't mean anything by it, but it's wrong the way they say it. And it's often a kind of the assumption like, oh, you're still doing that, or you're able to do that, or, well, why don't you, let somebody else do that because it's time for younger people to get a chance. And I'm all for younger people getting chances, but I don't think that means that older people can't be doing things. I just think we can both be doing things.
Absolutely. And I think that this, we're coming together trying to figure out new roles, and we all take on new roles. I will tell you, I feel like there's an opportunity for employers to expand their vision, but also for the talent, for the candidates like us
Yeah.
to start to figure out how we're showing up in an intergenerational way. And it's not, hey, let me tell you what it was like back in the good old days.
Right.
I think there's more mutual mentoring going on.
I think that's true, and I also think it's up to us to fight back against the stereotypes about older workers and older adults. So employers often think older people aren't interested in technology, can't learn it, are not productive, have one foot out the door. And if you want to keep working, whether it's full time or part time, you want to show them that they're wrong, or at least they're certainly wrong about you. So, learn about AI and use it and all the other skills that people are using in the workforce these days and show your bosses or your potential bosses that you are just like anybody else. You want to, and you learn these things, you are learning, you're using them, you're comfortable using them.
Wonderful. I've got another big bucket, healthcare, and specifically lately Medicare. There's just so much uncertainty and change going on. Tell us more about where we need to be focused as it applies to that.
Well, Medicare is another one of those things that most people don't think about until they get there. And so what I hear a lot is people, when they turn 65 or just they're about to, they say, oh, now I have to learn Medicare. And it is complicated. It's not easy. There's Part A, Part B, Part C, Part D, but it really helps to learn about it. I would say before you're 65, if you can start learning it in your early 60s, that would be great. And you may want to get some advice from an advisor. There are people who sell Medicare Advantage policies, Medicare Part D drug policies, who can guide you. Now they're going to get a commission from the insurance companies, so understand that they're making a living doing it. But if they're good, and hopefully you'll find one that is, they'll be telling you the pros and cons of different alternatives. I think the biggest confusion people have is between what's called traditional Medicare and what's called Medicare Advantage or Part C. And Medicare Advantage, those are the plans you see advertised on TV all the time. And it's true that they do offer some benefits that traditional Medicare is not allowed to offer, dental coverage, vision, hearing, those kinds of things. But I will also say that Medicare Advantage plans typically want you to see specific doctors and hospitals in their network. Some of them only allow you to see those doctors. So you may be limited as to where you can go. And they also will cover certain medications that you may take and maybe not others. So you'll want to compare those things. So you may be able to save money with Medicare Advantage, but what I've heard people say is it's often better for people who are healthy, not as great for people who aren't.
Agreed. And with that, hold that thought. Audience, we're going to take a quick break, but stick around because when we come back, there's a few more hot topics we're going to be exploring with Rich. Okay, Rich, so we hit a lot of big topics, and now, it's funny because we have this multi-generational thing going on and changes are happening left and right. I wake up each morning and whatever I thought yesterday, there's a little change or a shift. Yet the innovations we're championing, they're going to benefit the generations that follow us.
Yeah,
and I just feel like that, so we're trying to move forward. And one of those things I say often, sometimes mayhem strikes, and that is the worst time to start learning about options. So when you were advocating, keep abreast before it happens, that's similar advice that I'm doing in workshops. And I think people aren't quite there yet,
Yeah. Well, the temptation is just to put it off and to say, well, I'll deal with it when I have to deal with it, because that's just the way humans are. But it's really better if you can to say, well, I may have to deal with this sometime soon, or I probably will. I better learn about that so that when it does happen, whenever it happens, I'm a little prepared for it, especially when it comes to something like caregiving.
Caregiving, we're going to get there in a second. I'm looking at housing. And housing matters. Housing's been disrupted for all generations currently. Yeah. Specific to older adults, there's this reluctance to move or change things. I'm going to age in place. I think I've seen surveys showing 80-90% of older Americans prefer to age in place in the home where they raise their family.
Right.
Whether that's going to work or not. And the likelihood of that happening, I don't know. Can you speak to housing and some of the things we should be mindful of as we continue to age?
Yeah, well, as you say, most of us want to age in place, live in the home that we've been living in. But for many of us, our homes don't want us to. They won't let us because they have a lot of stairs. They have doors that we may have trouble getting through. We may not have a way to get in and out of the house easily as we get older. So I would say before you commit to living where you are, think about, well, if I needed some help getting around in some way, could I keep living here? And, there may be modifications you can do in your home, or you may say, you know what, maybe this isn't going to be the best place for me if I need help getting around. So maybe I should think about some other place. My wife and I live in a single family house in New Jersey, which we love. We know that at some point we're going to be moving to Los Angeles where our sons live, and we know we're going to look for a condominium there that does not have any stairs, just because we feel like there may be a point where we will need that.
And that's where we are. We might be a couple of laps ahead of you. So we had the 5-bedroom home where we raised our kids up in Cleveland, moved to Cincinnati, shrunk our footprint. It was emotional, by the way. So sure. We have 3 millennial sons out there in the world doing great things, and none of them or their wives were very interested in the stuff that hey, who wants this?
Yeah, I wrote an article for Next Avenue a few years ago called "Sorry, Nobody Wants Your Parents' Stuff," and it resonated. It really is true, and it's nothing personal. It's not that your children hate your taste, although sometimes that's true. But it's mostly they don't have the room, or they just want to decorate their own way, or they're going to move sometime soon. And so odds are they don't want very much of what you have. And if you try to force it down their throat and give it to them, they may be resentful or worse. So before you start saying, well, you're going to get this, or here's the box is coming tomorrow, be sure to have a conversation with them. Maybe they'll want it. There's a good chance they won't.
Yeah. And it's okay. It's a blend, right? There's some things that they want. And I think that we navigated it firsthand ourselves. Yeah. And it was enlightening. I mean, here I'm supposedly helping lead and champion modern elders. And there were some epiphanies for myself. But after we made the move, it was freeing. Mm-hmm. I feel like being a tad bit proactive on where we're heading is helpful for our sons someday.
Yeah.
what is older? Older is 10 years wherever you are right now, right?
Exactly. Right. Yeah.
So we're just trying to be proactive in where we're living and how we're living,
Yeah.
being mindful of them.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And grandkids, by the way. So I don't know where you're at on that spectrum. We got four
Yeah.
grandkids, and this freeing is great because we can be more present.
Yeah, we're lucky to have one granddaughter, but she's in Los Angeles, and so that's one of the many reasons we want to move out there when we can. We can't at the moment because my wife's mom is in Washington D.C. and she has dementia, and we don't want to be far from her. But one day we will move to Los Angeles. And so we do a lot of FaceTiming right now with our granddaughter, and we visit her a lot. We visit as
Yes.
often as we can. Yeah.
Isn't that great? That's another, by the way, good benefit from the whole pandemic we moved through. We're
That's right.
digitally savvy, right?
Yeah.
You teed up though where I'm heading next, and so there's the whole thing of us, but it's caregiving, and we are kind of between generations. I know. So you mentioned your mother-in-law, and I know my husband and I, his parents, my parents. There were things where we were kind of getting sandwiched into child rearing and supporting our parents. Speak to that. What tips do you have for our audience on that?
Yeah, well, I lived through that myself. For my parents, they both passed away, but I've got two millennial sons, and there was a period where we were trying to help both my parents and help our kids. And it's a struggle for many people because it's a lot to manage. Sometimes financially it becomes a burden. I did an article for Kibler magazine recently about how many people in their 60s and 70s and maybe even late 50s are paying something to help their parents and also to help their millennial kids. And sometimes it's small regular things, but sometimes it's big things like long-term care, home care, or college tuition, or help your child buy a house. So it's hard to do, but if you can do it, it's something that they'll be grateful for.
However, I think there's a big caveat there. Sometimes people are doing it. I mean, it's still a tricky economy. And so they might be holding off on saving for their own.
Right.
I think that's a mistake. It's
Yeah.
tempting.
Yeah, you need to remember your own financial needs too. And you can't say, well, one day I'll save for my retirement, or right now I've got to help pay for my kids' college tuition, or I've got to help my parents. What you want to do is, if you can, do all those. And maybe you can't give as much to your kids or your parents as you'd want to because you need to be saving for retirement. But try to find a way to do some of all those things. And certainly don't forget about your own retirement and your own personal goals that you've got.
Agreed. Hey, you've been hosting master classes, I know specifically at NYU, likely elsewhere, and that's fascinating. By the way, it's on my bucket list myself. But tell us more about the conversations that are happening there.
Yeah, well, I've been lucky to be teaching a master class in unretirement at NYU for a few years, and it's usually it's virtual. It's with people who are in their 50s and 60s. Some are either close to leaving their full-time jobs, or some already have, but they are a little trepidatious and concerned, maybe sometimes confused about what this next chapter is going to be. So I try to help explain to them kind of, what the joys and challenges are going to be, how to prepare for it, the kinds of things that might make it a more successful stage of life. And I find that they're very eager to learn this because there's not a lot of information out there for them.
There isn't, and I'd imagine sometimes the best sharing, as brilliant as you are, some of the sharing is probably happening peer to peer, right?
Absolutely. And I always bring back students from former classes to talk to the ones that we've got now so they can say, well, here's what my experience has been like. This is what I've been doing. And they find that helpful too.
Yeah, I think that especially in today's, social media realm, that, everybody's living the happy Truman Show life. When you peel back the curtain and have some candid conversations, it's kind of inspiring to know, oh, I'm not in this alone. Other people are tackling some of these challenges.
Yeah, exactly. There's a wonderful group called Chapter X. I would call it a support group, a virtual support group for men who are sort of struggling with this chapter of life. It's hosted by a fellow named Michael Kay, and they have a Zoom meeting once a month with men who sign up. It's all free, and they just talk with each other about what they're facing and challenges or things that have worked well for them. And he did this because he finds that men are not as good as women are in talking with each other about issues that they're dealing with. And he felt like he wanted to be helpful to do that. And I think it's been really great for the men who've been joining that. And I think people who are, wondering what they should be doing with their lives or how to do it might want to look into that.
Great. Thank you for sharing that. We'll have links in the show notes. So I'm going to wrap up with, we're all about what's next, being proactive. What's next for Richard Eisenberg?
Well, I'm going to continue doing what I've been doing, which is writing about personal finances and work and retirement for places that would like me to write for them. It's a tough time to be a freelance journalist these days. Some places I was writing for are no longer taking freelance writing, and so I'm looking for some new ones, and I found some new ones. I do a lot of volunteering, and I really enjoy that. Some of that's in person. Every weekend I go to a place that I volunteer on every Saturday and Sunday, and I know I'll continue to do that. I joined the board of a nonprofit that I help out with as a volunteer. A lot of that's virtual. As I mentioned, one day we hope to move to Los Angeles, so I want to see what that chapter of life is going to be out there, and spend as much time as I can with our sons and my daughter-in-law and our granddaughter.
See, and I can see the joy. I see the enthusiasm as you look at this. And this is, I think we're living our own next chapters, maybe a tad bit more out loud, helping others, right?
Absolutely.
One more thing I know you're doing next, which is you're going to join us for our University of Dayton Health and Wellbeing Symposium on March 11th. You'll join us virtually, but you're the kickoff for us to really, spark some more good sharing and et cetera. So everyone stay tuned for that. Rich, for those that are listening, if they want to get in touch with you, what's the best way to do that?
Well, I'm on LinkedIn, also Facebook, also X, formerly Twitter. But you can find the articles I write about unretirement on marketwatch.com in the retirement channel. It's called The View from Unretirement. Or you can listen to the podcast that I do with two co-hosts called Friends Talk Money. Thank you so much.
And I got to tell you, when my alerts go up in LinkedIn that Rich published something, when I can, I stop and I read it because it's really good. So thanks for joining us today, Rich.
Thank you, Donna. I appreciate it.
If you are enjoying this podcast and want to engage personally on topics for the modern elder, join us at the 2026 installment of the Chapman Symposium at the University of Dayton. Our theme this year is Reframing Aging. Joining us as keynote speakers are Richard Eisenberg and Jenny Carlson. Richard is an award-winning unretired journalist and podcaster specializing in older Americans, aging, personal finance, work, and retirement. Jenny is the state director of AARP Ohio, where she leads initiatives to empower people aged 50 and older through advocacy, community outreach, and member engagement. We also have several impactful breakout sessions to choose from. You can find out more and register by visiting continuingeducation.udayton.edu.
And we're back, and joining me again is where you started, Dr. Katie Reynolds. Katie, wow. I think we want to share a few takeaways. I think that's good for everyone to start thinking through. What were the takeaways from Rich's talk for you?
Well, one thing that really stood out for me for both of you and working with our Osher Lifelong Learning Institute here at UDayton, a couple of things that I've noticed and I'm learning myself and growing is the talk of ageism. I know I sometimes am asked, oh, you're over there working with the old people. But it's amazing. That second, I love the term encore that you used. I think people really struggled, like you were saying, to find what is the right term to use. I don't want to use retirement because I'm really still active. We have such a plethora of wonderful members in our Lifelong Learning Institute that have incredible careers, experiences, background, knowledge to share. They're not done yet. And I'm really hoping that we can continue to connect our younger generation with this generation to really help them to figure that out and support each other. But I like that encore because it's a great term to say, I'm not done yet and I have something more to give. I think one of our members recently shared with me that she struggled what to share with people after finishing her 3-decade career. She wants to work again, and she tells everyone, I'm in between careers, and that feels awkward to her. But I like the term encore, that she's continuing looking for the next place to serve and how important that is to continue to age well and be healthy and productive.
Absolutely. And it seems like, here Rich is an expert in this space, yet he's constantly curious and constantly inspecting and kind of recalibrating. And that kind of stuck with me. I think, to your point, Katie, too young to be done is the flag I wave right now at this stage of my life in my 60s. But as we progress, things are going to change and evolve. And I just think we need to continue to look at this together as, all generations. Because I think there's impact. One thing I didn't get to bring up with him that I wished I had was on the workforce piece. I think that employers might want to think about caregiving. They think of caregiving, any kind of support as it applies to kids. And they may want to explore caregiving as it applies to aging parents, because sometimes that can be tricky.
Absolutely. And I think just myself coming into that sandwich generation of still finishing out my children and helping them fly the nest, and then also having to take on additional responsibilities and burden for aging parents who are needing assistance and making those hard choices about whether to age at home or go to that community. I think that's often not talked about enough, and there's not enough support. There's some organizations out there. I can tell you, like, my daughter works for Microsoft, and it's amazing the support they give for that generation to have guidance and support. They actually provide folks that will advise and work through consultation to help their grandparents, not just their parents, but grandparents, in making these decisions. And I think that is where we really need to think about for a lot of organizations. How do we support and guide that generation through that? So there's, not a loss of time or long-term taking off or having to retire early to take care of aging parents, but how do we support them well to prepare for that and then prepare for themselves? That I think it's true what you said, that you get lost in that time frame, that you stop thinking about yourself and preparing yourself for that time when it's coming, because you're so much overwhelmed on both ends of the spectrum with your children and with your parents.
Absolutely. And I think I blinked twice and suddenly I went from being an adult child with an aging parent to becoming the aging parent. Oh my gosh. But here's the good news. As this series continues on our next program, the theme is going to be communities that work for all generations. And Jennifer Carlson, who is director of AARP Ohio, is going to join us. And a lot of big things are happening under that banner. In that, Katie, I don't know if you knew this, but in Greater Dayton, did you know that there are 18 communities, including the city of Dayton, that have committed to enhance support in some way, shape, or form for older adults? They see what's coming, and they're taking steps to at least address it, even if it's small steps forward.
That's awesome. That's incredible and so important.
Yeah, so we hope everyone will tune in and learn more as we tap into that episode.
Well, Donna, I really appreciate you helping to educate me, educate our listeners, and support this community in Dayton to learn how to age well. And I just look forward to a lot of good things to come and us helping to support you in your work as well.
My retirement does not include a rocking chair.
I'm still looking to see old friends and meet new ones.
My quest for knowledge didn't stop at retirement.
The Osher Lifelong Learning Institute is the place to stay curious. Explore your passion as part of a community with fascinating courses, seminars, events, and excursions, online and in person. Join us or rejoin us at the Osher Lifelong Learning Institute, the place to stay curious.
Thank you for joining us for this installment of the Lifelong Flyer podcast. Visit us at continuingeducation.udayton.edu to find out more about continuing education opportunities at the University of Dayton.